You see, when you look at the last 5 years of President Uhuru Kenyatta, the former, he mainly focused on 4 areas, food production, health, affordable housing, what
infrastructure
and infrastructure development. The Kenya Kwanza administration has come on board, with a different plan, and what they are calling actually the plan, that is, their manifesto, which focuses on what they call the bottom line, the bottom up approach of lifting the people in the middle of, at the lowest level of the economy, to lift their economic status, and of course invest in agriculture, investing in digital economy, and so much. How does all this fit in the greater scheme of things under Vision 2030?
I think, in fact, interestingly, they fit in very well indeed. To be able to grow the bottom, you have to give them the fighting chance at the bottom. You give them resources. They need education, they need health, they also need infrastructure. They need, some of them have got little enterprises, they need credit. They need liquidity, improved liquidity. And as you saw, what the Kenya Kwanza administration started with was to open up access to credit through the digital lending that was occurring. And the interesting thing there is they didn't have to set up an organization with the managing director and the board of directors and so on. No, this is really just interactions between the citizens and digital opportunities. The digital platforms have managed to do this. What that did is simply provide liquidity for people who are desperately in need of basic cash to do basic things. But upon that now, when you pass through that phase, and we had used this approach many decades before. When you pass through that basic approach, in which you can now take care of your basic needs, personal needs, that you can't go into a bank and ask money for, you might perhaps ask a friend or family, then you can now begin to plan your way forward, your medium term. And how does that planning occur? First, you need a healthy family, so the healthcare thing fits in there. You need access to education, because the skills come largely through educated populations. The current digital economy requires high ability, literacy, numeracy. You want to work with that. You want to still need, if you're in a farming area or a livestock area, you want to increase your productivity. That's how your incomes are going to grow. So they actually they go back to the same nexus. It's the same elephant, you're just wearing different glasses as you look at it.
And still, discussing, the Kenya Kwanza administration economic blueprint, what they call the plan. It is modeled along 6 areas, and this would be agriculture, micro, small, medium enterprises, economy, housing and settlement, healthcare, digital superhighway, and the creative economy. And when you look at what we had, under Uhuru Kenyatta, we used to call it the Big Four agenda. How do we ensure that all these plans, by successive regimes, they fit into the Vision 2030 scheme?
I think it's important. That is a good question. How do we ensure that there's continuity in all of this? You do so by aligning the physical implementation, where there is a physical implementation, like in the road improvement programs, like the fiber optic networks that have been done. This would be expanded and they reach homes and so on. You define subsequent phases to the same line of development that there is. In this proposal, we will probably end up accelerating the digital economy much faster than before. What that does simply is picking up the things that we had started, like say we had done Huduma centers, and you would walk to Huduma centers to get things done. You probably now will not need to do much walking. You might have to do some. You now do it at home on your phone and so on. So there is some sort of complementarity in the way the subsequent actions have been put. The SMEs, the SMEs had always been supported, but they didn't have the kind of focus we have now. So there's going to be major focus, and if the micro and small enterprises pick up, they're going to pick up the micro and largely fairly small enterprises in the lower strata of the business society. they are really hustlers, you could say. You know, they are struggling to break out of the shackles of poverty, extreme poverty, and try and do things for themselves. Now you have a whole department devoted to it and institutions that will support the lending. That is a continuation of the intention that even Kibaki, starting off with Kibaki, that even Kibaki had on reducing. Let's go back before Kibaki. President Kenyatta at independence, we had the enemies, the three enemies at that time were ignorance, poverty, and disease. So that improved health care was important for disease. You take chunks of it, or pieces of it as you move along. This is also going to carry along those pieces. In those days also, there was a lot of emphasis in the first administrations of this republic, a lot of emphasis on agricultural growth and productivity and growth. And you remember, I remember is not the right word for your age group, but one would say Kenyatta himself modeled, Jomo modeled the example by being a very keen farmer. Anytime free he had, he went on his farms and he expected his team around him. And at that time, it became the in thing for Kenyan elites to be farmers and be doing something and growing something. I think that really set us off well. And in those days, you know, economic growth in the 70s was fairly high. Then along the line...
Actually, it used to, you know, reach around 8-9%.
Yes. There was a year we reached 10.
Yeah.
I forget exactly which year. But
I think 1979?
Might be. We sort of, it was a blip, and then we went back kidogo. Yeah. But we're headed there, I think, now in a more substantive way. So if you look carefully at the things we have, housing, for example, Jomo Kenyatta attempted to promote housing for those who are working civil servants by the owner-occupied housing schemes and so on. Housing company, National Housing Corporation, was capitalized quite a bit. They weren't huge in their approach, but they expanded the opportunities. The model we are now looking at in affordable housing, I think a few countries have done it. A country like China has done it. We're talking about not only providing units for the working population, but providing units where by say civil servants, not only for public servants, but for everybody else. Providing these in rural, urban areas, so that people have a chance. You improve the quality of housing, even there, and so on. And as you improve agricultural productivity and you improve the SME, micro and small enterprise sector, you infuse new incomes into the economy, so they are able to purchase these services. They are able to access housing, access improved education, healthcare, transportation, and so on. So they're integrated. Yeah.
And then and it's good that you're talking about, you know, integrating economic growth with the critical mass.
Yes.
And sometimes this is not the case in many instances. But at the same time now, then how do you make, you know, Kenyans to be part and parcel of these economic transformation, these social transformation that we are talking about, even as we race towards Vision 2030? How do you make Kenyans to be part of this vision?
The critical thing, the input to this is going to be information. Information about what are the services available. People want to access technology, agricultural technology, for example, extension services or livestock maintenance. People want training and get skills so that the small enterprises that are maybe processing or carrying on activities that are not primary farm production have the skills to do so. And you can see, for example, the digital side has really grown rapidly. There's even no need to, the penetration of the telephony, which is the platform where we are able to house a lot of the platforms that provide the services in handheld devices, has really penetrated, but that penetration will continue and get even more sophisticated. Beyond that also, we have services that are now being provided through this extension service. You can get that information easily. Communication on disease and challenge. These are now reaching people directly. Now, but more importantly, there was an emphasis over the years, like the Kibaki era, for example, on and a bit before that also, I must add, on polytechnics to provide skills, village polytechnics at the grassroots level, you would say. And those have worked reasonably well. But they've been upscaled through the TVET program that was introduced in the last administration and is being continued in this administration, which are now operating at even higher level and at the basic artisan certification that people are getting. Now you get certificates, diplomas, and so on. And as you know, it has been true for many, many years in Kenya since independence. I can recall that directly, that people trained in polytechnics have proven to be very effective. When industry hires a diploma graduate who has gone through one of our TVETs, one of our institutions, Kenya Polytechnic, other polytechnics, they are almost ready to operate the machinery, for example, from day one. I say almost because there's always induction, things are done differently. It is different when people have followed the stream of getting degrees and beyond. That has a role to play. But these, I think, extensive diffusion of opportunities to access technology, digital and manufacturing and so on, I think is extremely important. The one area I think that we should put increasing emphasis, I know it's already in the program, is entrepreneurship.
Very good. I want you to hold on that point because we're going for our first break, and also, once we come back, I would want to find out. Kenya looks up to Singapore, to South Korea, as their model of development and success. And if you take, for example, the case of Singapore, when you look at their founding father and the person who is credited with transforming Singapore into a modern, highly progressive country that is now, it is Lee Kuan Yew, and he served between 1959 to 1990. That's almost 42 years. Is it high time that we also looked into the duration of our political leaders? I'll be coming back to you with that question. Okay. You're watching Inside the Government. We are live from Broadcasting House. We're having an interesting conversation here. What I usually call an intelligent conversation. That's what we do best right here on Inside the Government. We're taking our first break, and thereafter we are back with Sakwa Bunyasi, the chairperson of Vision 2030 Delivery Board. Welcome back. It is quite a beautiful afternoon here in Nairobi. It's been raining the whole morning actually, but it's a little bit warm. And we're having a very interesting and warm conversation here in the studio. We are live from Broadcasting House with the chairperson of Vision 2030 Delivery Board, Dr. Sakwa Bunyasi. And we are tracking the performance and the implementation of Vision 2030. Whether we need to tweak and retweak these these socio-economic blueprints. Our conversation continues here. And before we went for the break, I had given you an example of Singapore, where their founding father and the person who is credited with turning around Singapore from a poor island nation to a thriving, highly urbanized city-state. He served for almost 41 years. But when you look at Kenya, in the last 15 years, we've gone through how many administrations? We started with the administration of Mwai Kibaki. We went into Uhuru Kenyatta. We are now into Dr. William Ruto. And this transition comes with some levels of transition, disruptions. So how do we then ameliorate the situation to ensure that we incur minimal disruptions because of our political leadership?
Yeah, okay. Indeed, if you have long periods between election cycles, that could be an advantage to can minimize disruption. Fortunately, in Kenya, although they are 5-year mandates, Kibaki served 10 years. You remember there's some issues in the middle, but he served 10 years. Uhuru has served 10 years. President Ruto would serve 10 years as well. That's not a short period. A 10-year period, you can pretty much implement some of the things that you're doing. And successive administrations, given a knowledgeable population, would be obligated not to cast aside everything that was done before, because then they bring themselves, they give themselves a very high reach to be able to grow. And there is an appetite, when you do well, there's an appetite to do better. People still need a better road. They will need better digital support systems. They need better health, and they need to get healthier livelihoods and so on. The needs always are growing. But you see, Singapore, with all of the exampmples, positive examples they give all of us, had also other aspects that are not similar to those to Kenya, where Kenya probably has not done badly. I think the personal freedoms were many times sacrificed for economic development, and there's no question about that then. But also let us remember that in that region, because cultural factors are important around the world, that in that region with the how shall we put it, with the Chinese work ethic, it's truth be told, is somewhat different in many places.
Absolutely.
And
even when you look at their productivity level.
Yes. So that is a little different from the rest. That's not to say we aren't as productive, but that's the truth, we aren't. I think we have, because of our colonial history perhaps, we tend to seek out, what do you say, gains and benefits without thinking more about our personal responsibility and accountability to these things. So Lee Kuan Yew was able to stay that long because the voices had been aligned, much longer. And so maybe if we had a system in the future, think about systems where political parties are the unit of account rather than individuals, and you could now say we have, like, the battle that there is in South Africa, where the battle sometimes is around ideology, and you get elected on the ticket as a political party on the basis of your promise of what you'll do, ideology and the manifestos that you sell to the population, to become the driving force, rather than maybe the election of local elites that, you want this person rather than this person, and now you have had enough, give room for somebody else to come also. I think that attitude is in fact a weak attitude. It's our turn now, without saying, where have we, like you have been asking about Vision 2030, taking interest in what was intended to be done that's going to help society. How far have you gone with it? What's the tweaking that you're going to be able to do going forward? Those are the sort of concerns that I think would provide a positive development atmosphere.
Very good. And of course, the people who are supposed to drive these positive atmosphere, is definitely you and me and the person who is watching us. Because as we keep on saying, the Vision 2030 is not a document or is not an aspiration for the political leadership only. No. It is our document as Kenyans. It is our aspiration as Kenyans. I can see time is really running out, but I want to hear from you. What happens now, on the 31st of December 2029, I mean, we'll be waking up to
30th June 2030.
Yes. So what will happen?
That's an interesting question. It's actually just a planning timetable, so to say. Long before that, what's going to have happened, and this is, I have come in 2 months ago, and my task now is going to be to see through the implementation. And Vision 20 doesn't implement; they coordinate and they report and they monitor and report. To see through how this whole program is being implemented, to remind the departments on what remains to be done and what commitments they have made and so on, but also to think about the period beyond 2030. We'll have to think about the period beyond 2030, because when you do that, you're putting purely the interests of the country. There's no administration. We shan't have the luck of the Singaporeans. No administration will be in place for that period, has been even for this period. And now we'll be thinking about a longer period that traverses political parties, traverses administrations, but gives in constancy, gives the Kenyan person as the constant element in the middle. And I think the thinking, as I talked to various people, as I'm told also by various others, is that there have been institutions ahead of us in terms of thinking in the futures beyond 2030. The African Union is thinking about
Agenda 2063.
Agenda 2063. And by the way, coincidentally for Kenya, 2063, Kenya will be 100 years old. So maybe we should be thinking about Kenya at 100. Kenya 2063 by itself is just a number in the future, but Kenya at 100 is a cycle, is a life cycle. And at 100, you can no longer give excuses that, you know, we intended to be upper middle income, we are still low middle income. No, we shall have, institutions will have come to maturity. The individuals, decision makers, perhaps are not even born yet as I speak now, some are, but those don't matter. But the systems will have been put in place.
Systems will have to keep on growing. I want to hear from you, you know, when you look at what we have managed to achieve, you know, under medium-term plan 1, MTP 2, now we're in the medium-term 3, now we're in the process of drafting MTP 4, and the time that is left, you know, by the time we get into MTP 5, are you convinced that you know, Kenya will indeed be an upper middle income economy?
Yes, we have 7 years. If we got sustained growth, we would be very close to it. I can't give you the numerics, and also it's a horrible time to be discussing that kind of rapid takeoff because of the global circumstances we are in. The whole world is just it's just recovering from COVID. You know, we think it's gone, but it's not gone very far. And for us here, we have the added scourge of drought. And that's also going to be with us. It's hopefully going forward from the rains that we've seen this year, I think should improve. I still think we'll do very well. I cannot. If I was to bet, I wouldn't bet that we'll be upper middle income, but I would bet that we shall be a solid lower middle income, and that's a very good base for the takeoff in the next phase of things.
In 30 seconds,
yes.
What are you going to do with your board to ensure that this dream is achieved?
Okay, first of all, I don't have a board now, unfortunately, but we are working on getting a board functional, because the board expired sometime late last year, but we are in the process of putting in the missing pieces and have it relaunched perhaps next month, the month of May. The priority for the first board would be, what do we do the next 7 years? And MTP 4, which is the 5-year cycle the government uses, which falls within this 2030 vision, is just being launched now, as it were. So monitoring how that is going to be a high priority, to see where we are, how far we go, and so on. But also then beginning to think about the long-term vision as we wind down this, to think about how we are going to begin looking at the agenda, say 2063, which I am very convinced in my mind, I have to convince others, that Kenya at 100 would be a very good way of looking at it, because we would have spent 100 years independent. It would be good to see.
Very well. We are here, we'll be tracking the performance of the Vision 2030 and, of course, the performance of your board. Thank you very much for honouring our invite this afternoon.
Thank you.
And, of course, for sharing with us, you know, the Vision 2030 insight.
Thank you.
Asante sir.
I look forward to further interactions.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much indeed.
Very good. You have been watching Inside Government live from Broadcasting House. We have a conversation this afternoon, you know, revolved around the Vision 2030, you know, tracking the progress. And of course, we're in the company of the Vision 2030 Delivery Board. This is Dr. Sakwa. My name is O'Brien. We come to the end of this conversation. Thank you for your time. Stay tuned.